Good morning, this is the Mindflight channel, to empower, to elevate, and just to enjoy the journey. Well, today's section on the Mindflight channel is discussion. And we'll be discussing a topic, and various topics, but today's topic will focus on the question, what is selfishness? We have Scarlett and myself, Dennis, here to discuss this. Scarlett, what is selfishness?
Okay, firstly, I would just like to say that these discussions will take place on several walks that we will be doing in North Wales, and today we're in Llanberis. If you haven't been there, visit it because it's the most beautiful place, has the most beautiful lake, and today we're walking through the woods by the side of the lake. And as Dennis said, our subject is, what is selfishness? Well, inherently we're all selfish because selfishness is survival, and we all have to have an element of selfishness to survive in this world.
And equally, as Scarlett was saying, we're getting inspired by discussing this. And I think selfishness, yes, inherently selfishness, there's a good and bad side to selfishness. I mean, inherently selfishness overall isn't good, because obviously we have a selfishness and we want to be selfish to gain for ourselves and to utilize all the resources that we have to gain for ourselves, to direct the flow of the river our way. But inherently there is a negativity in that. Is that what you can do with selfishness is be blind to the reality of what selfishness causes. What do you think? Scarlett, what are the positives and negatives of selfishness?
Okay, so I think the positives of selfishness are like I said before, survival, because there has to be an element of selfishness for us to survive. So for example, if you cannot feed yourself, then you cannot do anything for others, because if you can't feed yourself, you cannot survive. So the core basis of positives of selfishness is self-love, self-care. Because without that, nothing flows, nothing functions within you. But the negatives of selfishness is when that becomes totally about yourself. There's a balance, like with everything in life, there's a balance, and it's finding that balance of being selfish enough to have what you need to be able to find that balance, but then to be able to give rather than take. And that's the tricky thing that I think as human beings we find difficult, because once we start to get things, we want more and we want more and we want more, and it all becomes about us. But what I've learned myself is have enough to sustain you, to keep your mind, body in balance, and your emotions, mind, body and emotions in balance. And then from that place, you start giving, and then it's a perpetual circle. You give, you take, you give, you take, you give, you take. You help others and others help you. So I think in answer to that, I think selfishness initially is great, but long term, no.
Yes, and I think the concept of selfishness as for your own objectives, if you're selfish to gain a vision, if you're selfish to the objective of the target of attaining something, as long as you're selfish in the objective and you realize that selfishness is for the purpose to fulfill your vision, but not at the expense of others, not at the expense of yourself falling into the idea of having the selfishness or being in that trap where you perpetually want more and more and more, and then you lose yourself in the concept of selfishness. So you don't distinguish between fairness and selfishness. It's purely selfish, purely for you, how you feel, how you care about yourself. So that's I think, yes.
Yeah, so I think, I guess if I had to sum it up, it would be selfishness for self-care and self-growth. And the negative of it is when it turns to absolute self-obsession, self-focus and greed, basically, because that's what it ends up with if you don't find the balance.
Yes, so in essence, selfishness, the concept of selfishness, I think perhaps to conclude, selfishness is inherently a good thing and inherently a bad thing. It's just knowing where, it's just recognizing the value and the application of selfishness, and realizing and recognizing when inherently selfishness is obviously becomes bad. When does it? What do you think about that, Scarlett?
Yeah, I think that it's about balance. It's like everything that we're going to discuss on this channel with Mindflight is from our own personal opinion, our own personal views, our own personal experiences. But it all comes back to balance at the end of the day. A little bit of everything's good for you and it's good for others. Too much of anything is bad for you and bad for others. So be selfish to allow yourself to grow, to understand yourself, but always check yourself. Are you being too selfish? And why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? Is it to help me and others, or is it just to help myself?
So yes, and thank you, Scarlett, for that. I think that's key. Recognizing the purposefulness of it, recognizing your destiny when you'll know, and recognizing how the function of that focus, the function of the idea of that, will bring to realization the value of selfishness and the traps of selfishness, the gains of selfishness. But as Scarlett says, how we can understand that and apply that. So,
and I think, with this channel, it's going to be a journey of exploring different emotions. It's all about emotions, the mind and the emotions. But maybe at the end of each one, ask yourself the question, what is selfishness to you? And just write down what is selfishness. And, this is your view on it. This is just our view. But, maybe explore your own mind and find out what is your view on selfishness.
Yes, I think Scarlett's correct. I think Scarlett's right in having that view, putting that perspective, a view of selfishness down, and just having your understanding, your interpretation of selfishness. But obviously, what Scarlett said is correct, and basically that covers, I think, what is selfishness, what we can recognize from selfishness. When do we know when we can recognize selfishness? And obviously, as Scarlett says, write it down, and we'll see what selfishness means to you and how relevant it is to you, and where you are in the understanding of selfishness. Well, I think that in essence concludes our discussion on selfishness. Scarlett, do you have anything more to say?
No, I think that's it, really. I think it's just about being self-aware and asking your own questions at the right time in your life. And if you're listening to this channel, these questions probably will have arisen. So yeah, take that time to explore yourself. And we're about to enter into a tunnel. There's a beautiful walk on the Clanberis Lake where you go into this amazing tunnel. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing. And what it is you're entering, and you can actually hear
it.
the resonance, the echo, as we enter the. Yes, it's impressive. If you have time, I implore you to certainly to visit North Wales. Obviously, when circumstances are better, and explore. But as far as that is, do you have anything more to add, Scarlett?
No, just enjoy the channel.
Yes. So from Captain Dennis and my assistant flight attendant Scarlett, we both wish you a safe and comfortable onward journey, and we'll speak to you again. We'll see you again next time.